Hey guys, are you ready to work with your perspective? In this case, we are going to display our robot in a three-dimensional perspective, as I mentioned in previous lessons. What we are going to do is use this sketch as a reference and use the grid as a floor, like a kind of guide, in order to work with different perspectives to develop our drawing. First, we are going to use the lines of the grid as a guide, as if they were a floor on which we are going to draw our sketch. This will help us to copy the model we made previously, but in this case with perspective, thanks to the grid, as if we were using a rotoscoping technique, but a little bit more complex. Okay, I'm going to orient the robot to the left. The lines of the floor are of great help to detect the potential vanishing points I can use. As you can see, I'm drawing the most distant areas next to the horizon line, and the nearest one will be even bigger, and I'll draw them parallel to the diagonal lines that emerge from the vanishing point on the left. So I'm going to follow the same steps I just mentioned to draw the robot. In case we have any doubt, just move the vanishing point to the area we want to emphasize. We cannot see it very clearly since I forgot to remove the sketch of above, but I remove it afterwards. But guys, as I told you, for this step you just need to interpret the sketch we are making now to reflect on it the same characteristics of the smaller sketch, such as all the legs, which are quite big and that we are going to emphasize, or the glass covering the cabin, where the driver is supposed to be. Also, the air vents or radiators, which expel hot air and placed on the sides of the robot as a kind of aileron. Guys, it's very important the drawing is parallel, but also that it respects the vanishing points. We don't need to duplicate completely the sketch, we don't need to follow the same steps. We can introduce some changes while creating the new one, in order to get a realistic effect. I'm completing the drawing, as you can see, and what I'm trying to do now is orienting the sketch. Perspective is something we need to be extremely careful with if we don't want to ruin it, especially since it's a quite complex object and very difficult to represent. It's not the same to represent a sphere or a cube in a plane that represent all these elements with several pieces and components, and also drawing them with perspective. So it's quite difficult. You can use as a guide 3D models that you'll find on the internet, or in case you have a toy similar to it, you can use it as a reference to work with the perspective and so on. What I'm doing now are just small details that I made in the sketch and want to include in this one, like the top of the head, the tiny reliefs of the glass, and so on. Okay, let's make it smaller so that it fits in the canvas. Okay. I'll be working with different brushes, but I'm using mainly the one by Kyle that I always use, which is for sketching, and it's a kind of pen brush. I'm using a red color just to emphasize the drawing, but I didn't select it for any particular reason. In case you're working with a kind of scanning, you can work with some blue tones, since Photoshop allows you to delete these lines and this particular color, and then you'll get a clean and perfect outline. In my case, well, as I'm working directly on the file, I'm not quite sure about the result we would get. So guys, just clean the lines and add details, as I said, like loose cables, screws, joints, areas with couplings, and so on. All these elements contribute to create a realistic robot. Here you can spot clearly some of the elements we saw in the previous illustrations, like the joints that allow the robot's motion. Right now, I'm extending these lines to draw accurately some elements of the robot. Okay, so this way is a way to draw different elements. I must confess it's not as simple as working with a frontal view, because this one, as I said before, we use a lot of symmetry, which eases the job. But in cases like this one, it's quite complex, especially if we don't master working with a perspective, etc. I'm trying to copy all these elements with parallel and diagonal lines, and using the vanishing points as a reference. Well, as I said, it's just a matter of trying out and erasing until the result convinces you. Guys, pay particular attention to the robot's main elements when copying them in the final drawing, since they will determine a proper position. Okay, I'm going to do it again, and I'll use the vanishing points and the horizontal lines to draw the elements I want to transfer to this drawing. See? Okay, perfect. Well, there's nothing much else to say. And again, just keep adding details. If we can use the Liquify tool if you are not happy with the result, to adjust certain areas, or Ctrl T, which allows you to modify the selected areas using the handles by pressing Shift, Ctrl, and so on. Okay, the Liquify tool, as I said, is a tool that lets us adjust some areas, making them bigger or smaller, and it also lets us modify them as if it were the hand tool. Another useful tip is drawing a person inside it, just to check the size of our robot. In this case, the seat is quite big. Not too big, but considerably big. However, drawing it next to the machine would help to see the real size of the robot. Okay, look at this tiny man over here. Well, this is the end of the lesson. I hope that you like it. In the next one, we are going to learn to add volume to the scene and thus develop our drawing. So we'll be working with the color, and this process will be quite simple but special. Thus, so far we have the two perspectives of our robot and the line art. We've talked about joints and we have some examples, so the only missing part will be coloring and adding volume. So guys, are you ready for the next lesson? See you there! Let's make the most of it!